Well, are millions of Americans about to wake up to a Walking Dead disaster this November? Well, potentially. As you know, the Democrats have now dragged us into, I believe it's the 21st day of the government shutdown. And so far, it doesn't look like they're going to make any headway on that. And quite frankly, they're doing it on purpose. I think the Democrats want to cause economic chaos. But what am I talking about regarding this Walking Dead disaster? Well, I've got a lot to show you in regard to that, but let me start with this first. This article is on Yahoo. I found on the Yahoo News, but government shutdown, day 21, live updates from Mike Johnson's press conference. To kind of give you an update, here it is. Johnson and Republican leadership are scheduled to brief reporters today, Tuesday morning, as the federal government shutdown enters the 21st day. Amid growing frustration, Johnson has indicated he will not recall lawmakers to Washington for votes until the government is reopened. Meanwhile, Senate Democrats on Monday blocked a Republican-backed continuing resolution, a CR, for the 11th time. Following the failed vote, Senate Minority Whip John Thune suggested it may be time for the House to reconvene. It remains unclear how the long stalemate will continue as hundreds of thousands of federal workers are set to miss another paycheck in the coming days. Several states have begun warning that key federal programs could soon be suspended entirely, right? So that's kind of the update. Here's the deal. We said on the table, here's a clean CR, kind of continues the Biden funding. Never in the history of these shutdowns have Democrats not signed on to a clean CR. Yet here we are. I don't think anything should be taken back to the table. This is obviously the fault of the Democrats. Republicans have been voting out, and Democrats have not. This is a Schumer and Soros shutdown. Hopefully you guys watch my videos on that, because this shutdown, Schumer has sent, not Schumer, but George Soros, through his funding, is funding organizations to sit down with Chuck Schumer to encourage him to keep the shutdown going. Meanwhile, there are millions of Americans who are suffering. In fact, there is a big fear by a lot of people that something crazy and big could happen that could lead to, well, what one news reporter is calling the Walking Dead. But before I dive in, I've got to give a quick shout out to my sponsor. You know, sometimes you see something and you think, I've got to have one of those in my life like yesterday. Well, these Trump sneakers that are gold are going to make you think just that. Take a look at these bad boys. They aren't just shoes. They're a full-on statement. They're bold. They're fearless. They're unapologetic and patriotic. And let me tell you, they don't just look good on your feet. They feel good as well. They're comfortable. They're lightweight, and they are durable. But you know what's best about these is they send a message, and a message, by the way, that liberals are not going to like. That is why you should check these out ASAP, and you can even buy them as a gift. All you have to do to check these bad boys out is go to the MAGAoffers.com/Lisa. That's the MAGAoffers.com/Lisa. And right now, if you go to my site, you can get it for 15% off just for my audience only. And by the way, you want to hurry up and get a jump on this because they are only selling 1,000 pairs. So check it out now. Anyhow, if you want more information, click that more button or click the link in the description box below. As a quick reminder, just please make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. Hit that sub button, go all the way up, and make sure you got that bell check and hit like on the video. And obviously you could tell I still kind of lost my voice here for a little bit, but let's dive in. First, I want to tell you, to kind of give you a background, we have closed down the government. I think it was like 6 times since 1990, but the last government closure that we did was in, I think, December 2018 to about late January 2019. And that particular government shutdown lasted 35 days. And that makes it one of the largest shutdowns in our history. And it cost us a good $3 billion in lost GDP. So keep in mind, this does cost us money considering the shutdown. But that said, I do not think the Republicans and the GOP should budge at all. It's the Democrats who are literally wanting to fund healthcare for illegals, people who are not even American citizens, and they're doing it through this. Oh, they're going to claim amnesty, so suddenly everything's free. Look, folks, we don't get free healthcare. They're not going to get free healthcare. I am highly, highly against it. But with that, if this continues through a certain time in November, well, SNAP recipients could lose their free stuff, right? Take a look. This is on ZeroHedge.com. What are the chances of a food stamp collapse in November? And it asked the question. Here's what it says. A classic saying among preparedness experts in the U.S. is that America is capable of weathering many crises. But when the food stamps shut down, all bets are off. In other words, when the Free Stuff Army loses their handout, that's when all hell breaks loose. Isn't that a true statement? They no longer get their handouts, so bam, all hell's going to break loose. And by the way, I got to add this. This is my personal story. We grew up really poor, right? I had a single wide trailer, right, that we grew up in my whole life in Texas. There were drug addicts all over my freaking neighborhood. So yeah, white people can be poor, Bernie Sanders, kind of the things that pisses me off. But one of the things my parents never did, even though despite they were very poor, my dad actually, he's disabled at a level. He was a vegetable for a good little over a year. He was never supposed to walk again. He's walking again now. I brought him on the channel once before. But anyway, despite all of that, and my mother worked in a nursing home for a time, we never relied on SNAP. We never relied on that government assistance at the time, right? I think my dad's on Social Security now, different time for them. But when we were younger, never got that SNAP assistance. We would go to the food bank, get food when we needed it, go to Goodwill when we needed it. So just wanted to say that. But so there's a lot of people who are getting these things. And when that free stuff gets cut off, that is really when people get really mad and upset. I guess that's what happens, when the shit hits the fan and all hell breaks loose, which is why people prepare being on one of those things. But the article goes on to state this. The United States government spends over $100 billion on SNAP. That's a lot. That is really a lot. We should not be spending that much on SNAP programs. Just saying. We should be able to help these people get off and help these people get a job. That's what we should be focusing on. But anyway, the largest single food welfare project in the world. We are giving out more free stuff than any other country. It's difficult to predict what an end to SNAP might look like. And here's their reference. One can assume the worst and be ready for a Walking Dead disaster in which angry mobs run rampant or tensions might continue to simmer. Many people might be forced to simply get a job. Novel thought, right? And the welfare subset could decide to adapt. But I have to agree with the later, they probably won't. Because if people are getting free stuff and they're constantly getting handed free stuff, right? You're not going to just go run and get a job. You're going to be like, I want my free stuff. I've had it free forever. This is why socialism doesn't work, right? If you, I'm going to use my kid, for example. If I give her, a chunk of money and say, hey, baby, I'm going to pay for pretty much everything, but I want you to go and get a job. You think that child's going to go and get a job if everything's covered? No. Maybe they'll get a job and work a couple hours at max. But if someone is paying for everything, they're going to continue to thrive on that. And hey, it even goes for, let's say you buy your kid a car, right? If you buy your kid a car, they're not going to treat that car as well as a car that they themselves bought and paid for and worked for. It's the way life works. It's why socialism never, ever, ever will work. So I love the reference they say here. We could be ready for the worst and have the Walking Dead disaster. Those people who aren't getting their free stuff anymore. In other words, lots of liberals and lots of Democrats and angry mobs running rampant in the streets. But the article goes on to say, in 2025, around 42 million people have tapped into the SNAP benefits, which amounts, and this is insane, folks, to 12% of the population. And here's the deal. If you guys are on SNAP, I get it. And especially at an older age, there's lots of things that can happen. And there is a time for things. If you need a time for it, you need a time for it. But a lot of people get on these programs and they never get off, right? But it amounts to 12% of the population, more than enough people to create chaos. Should they be politically weaponized to do so? But what are the chances of them actually being canceled? And that's the question, right? That's where it lies. And here's the deal. I think a lot of the people who are accepting these free things are Democrats, because the only ones who want the handouts are Democrats, because they don't want to do the work. They want everything handed to them. But what's the chances of this happening? Well, as I stated earlier, the longest shutdown was about 35 days, right? And here's the thing, even though it was 35 days, and this is why I'm not too concerned about it, because during that last shutdown, during the 35-day shutdown, the food stamps continued to remain available through the duration of the political standoff. I don't think they're going to cut the benefits, especially considering the Democrats are the root cause of this standoff. But that said, around half of the staff of the USDA was on furlough, which led to delays in new applications and renewals. So there will be delays. A shutdown would have to run for a substantial length of time beyond the record for SNAP benefits to completely vanish, right? But it does really depend on the Democrats. A number of economists are warning that the nation's largest anti-hunger program has a contingency fund of about $6 billion, but November benefits are expected to total around $8 billion. So we got a little bit of a difference there. The USDA shutdown plan noted that funding is available in the event of lapse, but if the current conditions hold, SNAP would run out of cash by early November. So that kind of gives you the overall idea of the entire program and kind of what's going on with SNAP. So we shall see ultimately. Now, Polymarket actually did an estimate on all of that, and that's in that same article. And it says betting website Polymarket places the odds of the shutdown stretching into the middle of November at 38% from 10% a week ago. So they're saying the shutdown will likely end on or before the mid of November. We've got a 38% chance there. So there's your statistics. There's your breakdown. There's what's going on. Now, what I find interesting is there was one video of a gal, and I believe it's original. I don't know if it's an Instagram or TikTok video, but she is literally saying, hey, if people run out of these SNAP benefits, they're going to start stealing groceries, not from the store, but from people walking out of the store. And I'm going to let you hear a piece of it, and then you can assess for yourself what you think about it. But take a listen.
And people are going to start, I'm telling you, this is going to be a thing. People are going to start, instead of stealing groceries from the stores, they're going to start watching people go to their cars. And they're going to take all of their groceries. And you know what the store going to do? Not our problem. Not our business. It's outside the store. They didn't do it in the store. It's not our property. Call 911. Call the authorities. Make a report. They're going to leave your ass for dead.
So there's her assessment. Could that be the case? Well, sure. That could absolutely happen, especially in the event that people are desperate. I mean, desperate times, people do desperate things in desperate times and in desperate situations. But other programs that right now are at risk, one of those being the Head Start program. We have this WSFA 12 government shutdown imperils dozens of Head Start preschool programs. It goes on. Head Start programs that serve tens of thousands of the nation's neediest preschoolers are facing a cutoff of federal funding at the end of the month because of the government shutdown, leaving many scrambling to figure out how to keep their doors open. The Early Education Initiative is funded almost entirely by the federal government, making it vulnerable to funding disruptions. The programs, which are run by schools, local governments, and nonprofits, receive grants annually and are not allowed to carry over unspent money. With new grants on hold, a half a dozen Head Start programs already missed federal disbursements, right, that they were expecting on October 1st. So programs like that are going to be impacted. Now, regarding Social Security, from the way that I understand it, that if you get Social Security checks, those should still arrive. There should be no impact to that. There might be delays in certain aspects of it, but people should still be getting those. But there's kind of the rundown. I did a report earlier. There are some issues happening at airports. I did fly this past week. We didn't have any issues or delays, but we're in the Arizona area from that airport. But, delays are happening because the air flight people are like, hey, we don't want to work and not get paid. Why would we work and not get a paycheck? But the further that we go on into this, some of that could be impacted. And I think one of the things that could end up stopping this shutdown is the air traffic controllers, which ended up stopping I believe it was the last 35-day shutdown, because they're like, hey, we're not getting a paycheck. Why are we working here? What are we doing? Enough is enough. I'm out, right? And they're the ones that control a myriad of the flights. You don't have the air traffic controller. Pretty much a lot of the airports are going to be at a standstill when it comes to flight. But anyhow, heads up. I don't think anything crazy is going to be happening with this SNAP program. I think we'll be free of the Walking Dead, thankfully, unless they stop paying the people, then we've got some other things to look at. Anyhow, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.